Do you know anyone with type 1 diabetes? Did you know that there are 1.25 million people with type 1 diabetes in the United States, of which 200,000 are young people under the age of 20? That's 1 in 500 with this type of autoimmune disorder. Approximately 40,000 people every year are diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in the United States. I recently sat down with Tyson Sunnerberg of Type 1, organizers of the Renegade Run event, which raises funds to finding a cure. Talk about commitment. I wasn't prepared for what I was about to hear. Tyson, what's up, man?
How you doing, Joe?
I'm here with Tyson Sunnerberg, Renegade Run. Tell me about that. What's Renegade Run all about?
Renegade Run is an event. It's not just a race, it's an event for the whole family. It is centered around a 4-mile course. It is a race for some people, and it's a run for others. We have 25 plus obstacles, in between 25 and 30. And it's really a run with obstacles. It's not an obstacle course race. Like some people are intimidated by the word, knowing like Spartan races or Tough Mudders and things like that that have mud and water and electricity and fire, and we don't have that. So Wampatuck, there's paved roads and there's wooded trails. So it's really like pretend you're going on a nice 4-mile jog, and like I said, some people walk, and then you're stuck with an obstacle in front of you. It's a wall, or it's tunnels to crawl over or crawl through, and these monkey bars, and we have this new obstacle, shimmy shake. It's upper body strength. It's obstacles. Like as a type 1 diabetic, life is full of obstacles. Every day is an obstacle.
So this is taking place in Hingham.
Yep.
In the Wampatuck State Park.
Yes.
And what time does it start in the morning?
Well, we have, it starts around 9 o'clock. We have our first competitive heat, we call it, goes off at 9:15. Those are the races that are really trying to get through it quickly, and they want to do every obstacle. And this is the heat where if you don't do an obstacle, you have to do burpees. It's a little bit more of a challenge because you're doing every obstacle, and if you don't do it, if you fall, you got to do a burpee. And then, so the winner actually gets cash. So the rest of the heats, it's really people that are trying something different. They're just out there to have fun. So anyway, so 9:15, our competitive heat goes. 9:30, we have our biggest team this year is going to go at 9:30. They have an exclusive heat. 9:45, we have all our sponsors and people they run with go, and then at 10 o'clock, open heats go every 15 minutes until 11:45. So the music's going to start at 9.
So you got music there too?
Oh yeah, yep.
All right.
So we have a band, first class band with Conchetta. They actually are going to start playing at 10, but they're going to have like background music going at 9. They'll start playing at 10. The heats go off every 15 minutes, like I said, till 11:45. And then we have inflatable obstacles that are there. We have a course for really young kids, you know, 3, 4, 5-year-olds, a mini Renegade course. And so it's really, like I said, it's an event. You know, it's not just a 4-mile race.
Now let's talk a little bit about how this came to be. As I understand it, this is organized by a nonprofit group called Type 1.
Yep, Type 1, yep.
Tell me a bit more about that.
So back in 2012, my friend Paul and Eric and I, we got together to see if we could be successful at an event for fundraising. We had participated in obstacle courses, like as you know, Spartan, Tough Mudders, Rugged Maniac, and we enjoyed them. And we were invited to a fundraising event to see if we wanted to participate. And then we found out, you know, what the fundraising event, what it raises for money and where it goes. And we said, no, we want a fundraiser that goes specifically for a cure for type 1 diabetes. You know, I'm type 1 diabetic, now my daughter is, but we want to get rid of the disease. And so we decided that, you know, let's try something on our own. Let's try something a little different. You know, like I said, we had done obstacle races before. There's 5Ks every 5 minutes, it seems like, so we didn't want to do that either. So we figured, let's try it. And our first race was in 2012. We did it the Sunday after Thanksgiving. November is Diabetes Awareness Month, so we figured November was perfect. And we put off the race. It was like 3, it was supposed to be 4 miles, but it ended up being 3. And we had 10 obstacles. We had, you know, 300 people there. We had an iPod set up on a shuffle. And we had a barbecue place came and barbecued. So it was different, it was nice. We pulled it off, it was great, a lot of work, but we pulled it off. And then we've built since then.
Tyson, you are an athlete.
Yes.
And you've been pretty much active throughout your entire adult life.
Yep.
When you found out that you were type 1, how did you feel? And did it change your overall lifestyle relative to staying active? And
you know, I was shocked to say the least. I mean, because I had known it as a genetic and juvenile disease. And when I actually researched it, I went on WebMD and I did all the symptoms, and I said, wow, this is it. And I told my mother, and I had just come off major shoulder surgery. And so my mother actually reached out to the orthopedic surgeon, who said, no, this is definitely not part of the recovery. So she suggested to me to go to the hospital, and my roommate took me. And the nurse right off the bat was like, oh yeah, that's diabetes. So they diagnosed me right there. I've always had the personality of, you know, it is what it is. Hit it head on and just deal with it. It was good that I was going home for the summer. It allowed me to get my head on straight and see the docs I needed to. I saw a nutritionist, and I just really started hitting the gym. So it really has, it changed, not that I wasn't active in college, but I had a typical college lifestyle. And then I was an athlete in college, I was a cheerleader, so I was active there. I didn't work out as much as I do now, actually. So I actually changed my lifestyle that summer to one of, you know, eating healthy. There's no specific, you know, diabetic diet, but it's a healthy lifestyle. And being active is part of that. So I've taken that in stride, and now I use my lifestyle as kind of a baseline for where I want people to try to get to.
now you mentioned your daughter also has type 1?
Yeah, so she was diagnosed last October 13th. She was diagnosed at 5 years old. She had all the markers for it, so we knew she was going to get it. And she was diagnosed, it was 10 days before the obstacle race last year. She started showing symptoms, and so I knew that was the first sign. So I checked her on my meter, and that was it. And so we took it in, and you know, it was different when she was diagnosed. It was a lot for my wife to handle. It was a lot for me to handle, even though we knew she was going to get it. Yeah. You know, for some reason, knowing it still didn't prepare us for what it was going to be like. But I don't know how my wife was able to take everything in that I had learned in the 17 years. But, you know, it was what it was. It was definitely a little more emotional last year at the race, just because, you know, it was all about curing type 1, and because I had it similar, I dealt with it just because I had to survive. But seeing my daughter sick, you know, it was a little bit more emotional for me, as it still is.
First off, thank you for sharing about how close this is in your family. And I can only imagine that some of the participants here in the Renegade Run are also type 1 diabetics, and what are some of the stories that you're hearing from some of these participants?
Yeah, you know, this year we're trying something new. We actually asked everyone who's signing up in the registration form what their, if they have a tie into type 1 diabetes. And there's a lot of people registering that have either a family member or a friend that is type 1 diabetic or type 1 diabetic themselves. And we not only the event itself, pulling in diabetics, but like we've talked to some type 1 diabetics that it means a lot to them. It is the fact that we're there for a cure, the fact that there's other diabetics around you makes a big difference. And then also raising awareness. You know, it's kind of it's a hidden disease in the respect that, you know, you don't look diabetic, which I've heard before. Because I think the stigma is that a diabetic is like a type 2 where you're older and you're overweight. That's the stigma. Because, you know, granted, you know, of the 30 million people that have diabetes, 28.5 million people have the type 2. So it's understandable, but type 1 can be hidden. You know, it's like that we don't parade around with our devices, most of us at least, so that everyone can see. So for people to be surrounded by others with the disease and others that care for the disease, for the awareness, for the cure, it's really empowering, and we like to we hear stories all the time about kids, and it's just diabetics being diabetics. We've had some kids going into the race and they feel much different when they leave. Like they're not like hiding it. They're not as shy. They really just appreciate the fact that they're in that setting.
That's what I call those aha moments.
Right.
Perhaps it's an aha moment for the competing athlete that's participating in the Renegade Run. Maybe it's an aha moment for the parent to see their child out there participating, or anyone that chooses to volunteer. Can you think of any other aha moments that you want to share with our viewers?
Well, you know, we, like I said to you, there's some type 1s, and I was one of them for a few years. It just kind of, we just go among our business. You know, we want to be, you know, I don't want to say normal. We want to just, you know, we want to kind of hide and be part of, you know, everyday life, and, you know, not be singled out. And I think at this event, you know, it's okay. You know, like, it's okay to admit that you're diabetic. We're actually going to have a community tent, a type 1 community tent. So friends and family of type 1, not of our organization, but of a type 1 diabetic.
Just from a support standpoint.
It's be there for support. Because, you know, I'm part of a couple of support groups, and, you know, on social media as well as locally. And there's just something about being around people that get it. You don't have to hide it. You can talk about your device or talk about the issues, because there's issues that are different every day. So that's what it is. And then for volunteers to be there and to understand the capacity at which, you know, they're helping change the disease, hopefully with a cure in the next couple of years. You know, it's you know, hopefully that's the way they look at it. Like, oh, I'm going to be part of the cure. You know?
How can one get involved from either a spectator or even as a volunteer to help?
So as a spectator, it's very easy. The park is a public park. You know, they could go to Wampatuck State Park.
So is admission free?
Yep. So okay. For spectators, there's no fee. They can go in. The course is open. I mean, it's in the trails and in the campgrounds of the park. You come in. You know, obviously parking is a little bit an issue. You have to know where to park. We have that set up. And then you can come in and they can walk around. They can go see their friends and family running the race. If they want to be involved, they can easily go to our website, type1renegaderun.com, and we have links for volunteering. We have links if anyone wants to sponsor. We have links for donating. And really, we'll take anybody. You know, obviously, the more runners we have, the better. We have a lot of local teams that are going to volunteer. Teams from Hingham High School, teams from Hanover High School. I have some of my clients that are going to be there. We have people that have supported the Type 1 from the get-go. So it's great. Just going on the website, you can get all the information, or our Facebook page, Type 1.
Diabetes is a disease, and what I want to understand is what's the difference between type 1 and type 2?
So in type 1 is an autoimmune disease, and in type 1 diabetics, the pancreas, which is an organ that produces insulin, stops working. It used to be known that the pancreas doesn't produce any insulin whatsoever at that point, but what they've come to find out that the pancreas in some folks, it works just a little bit. So we can get into that when we talk about the cure. So in a type 1 diabetic, the pancreas just doesn't work. So the insulin breaks down glucose and so that your body can use it for energy. In a type 2 diabetic, there's actually a variety of things with type 2 diabetes. It's genetic, a body can either not make enough insulin in a type 2 diabetic, or it has high insulin resistance, meaning that the insulin that it makes doesn't get used properly. So there's a couple different categories of type 2, but the main difference is type 1, no insulin is being made whatsoever. Type 2, your body might make some.
Now, I know you're not a doctor, so I'm not going to put you on the spot in that respect, but are there some obvious symptoms in which to look for if someone's not quite sure, other than saying, go see your doctor?
Well, a lot of people, kids, I've seen a lot of these stories, kids present like flu-like symptoms.
Okay.
There's fatigue, there's dehydration. So when I was diagnosed, I was thirsty all the time, I was urinating all the time, I was very tired, I lost a lot of weight without trying, and then I started having blurry vision. So that were my symptoms. But some folks, I've heard stories of kids that have flu-like symptoms, and they could go weeks without, because a parent might not know what those symptoms are. They may think it's anything,
Yeah, understood.
Yeah.
Now, the research and what's going on right now with respect to searching for a cure. What are you hearing?
So we work with Dr. Faustman. She's the primary beneficiary of our efforts here. She's been working with, for over 20 years with mice and now humans over at Mass General Hospital. So she's got a vaccine called BCG. But BCG, the vaccine, was actually used for years as a cure to tuberculosis. So it's already a vaccine that's out there. It's already approved. So we just got to find that it works for us. So what she's done, so she cured type 1 in mice, which is obviously step one. There's a lot of things that have been cured by mice, but then she's got humans now. There's human clinical trials been going on for over 8 years, and there's actually been a few people in the trials that have found that their A1C, so the A1C is your average glucose in 3 months. A lot of folks get their A1C done if they're pre-diabetic or whatnot, but so they found that these folks that have been in the study, in the trial I should say, for 8 years, their A1C has become normal. They're normalized it to a point. There was maybe a few that have some with insulin, some without insulin, but the goal here is to have a normal A1C, because that's how you determine, what kind of complications that you might have leading moving forward. So now she's expanded the human trials. She's in year 3 or 4 of the human clinical trials for more participants to see if the same thing happens. I tried to see if I could participate, but I didn't qualify. The parameters were the C-peptide level. So C-peptide is your function of pancreas, which I've already mentioned. But so my C-peptide level was too low to be admitted to the trial. So now they're trying to increase those participants, and then in the next, I believe the next year and a half or so, they're actually going to allow someone to get the vaccination without all the blood work. And hopefully myself and my daughter will be able to do that. I think there'll be a cost to it, but so she has found that the BCG vaccine, essentially, to answer your question now, has jump-started the pancreas. There's autoantibodies that are obviously, they're the opposite of antibodies, which are good for you. The bad cells kill off the good cells that produce the insulin. So what she's trying to do is increase something called the TNF factor, which the TNF, what it will do is start killing off the autoantibodies that are killing off the antibodies that create the insulin. So it's a big, obviously I've done the research, I've seen that. It may not be 100% the way it's written in her work there, but essentially she's jump-starting the pancreas again.
So, as a fundraising event, this type1.org, 501c3,
Yep.
proceeds of which are used to help support this type of research that's going on right now?
Yeah, so we donate our profits directly to Dr. Faustman, and she uses it all for what she's doing. When we were researching what we wanted to donate to, one of the things we looked into is that it's strictly a cure. There's a lot of things going on right now with diabetes, especially type 1, cure, care, education, all that stuff, which is great. We need it. But we wanted to specifically focus on the cure. So Dr. Faustman is like, yeah, well, this is what we're doing. We're doing the cure. There's no middleman really. It's like, yep. So for every cent we send to her, it's going towards operating the lab, increasing the participation, all that stuff, which is what we wanted. And then also on top of giving money to Dr. Faustman, we have a Type 1 Cares campaign, which actually sent a boy and a girl to Type 1 diabetes camp this past summer, and we'll continue to do that. So what we talked about before is that being part of the community as a Type 1, having that empowerment, so we send those kids to camp for that reason. So
that's great. So basically, Type 1 Cares provides support and also facilitates sending some of these young people who have type 1 diabetes to summer camp type programs.
Yep. Yeah.
In addition to that, the proceeds go directly toward the research work that Dr. Faustman is doing.
Right.
And so again, to learn more about this initiative, one can go to type1renegaderun.com.
And that's all the information is out there. The information about the race, volunteering, and it has the information on Type 1 Cares, it has the information on Dr. Faustman. Mm-hmm. We have some stories of other Type 1s that have done fundraising for us, including myself, just to hear stories. So it's all there on the site.
Tyson, I gotta just say thank you so much.
Thank you.
Your personal story, your passion, your commitment, it goes without saying. You're all in.
Yep.
And we want to commend you for being one of our first guests on Harbor Interests. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.